Hey guys, got another collection of stories for you today. First one up is about a guy with nice guy syndrome. So, I was playing at a game shop with a fairly large group a couple of years ago. Our DM seemed nice at first, although he was a little bit snobbish in a quirky nerd kind of way, but I liked him and his DMing style. I remember playing as a satyr rogue in this campaign. We had a town intro, went into a forest, had a series of dungeon crawls and wild travels that led us through nature, caves, and the Underdark. And by the time we were about to go from a mining town in the mountain to an elaborate cave system, that would eventually lead us to the Underdark, and eventually various layers of hell, a woman joined the group. She was the only woman in this group. She would go on to play an ASMR wizard, and both the DM and another player had a crush on her. The player would leave the campaign a couple of sessions later due to family issues across the country, so the DM felt more comfortable in making a move. He started out by blatantly favoring her in the game, and then he started having NPCs hit on her, most of which were enemies. She seemed completely unmoved by any of this, so eventually he just asked her out to watch Netflix and eat Papa John's at his place. He asked her this at the table in front of everyone after the dungeon crawl ended. She politely rejected him and said that she had a boyfriend, and he just kind of awkwardly stared at her like she was being unreasonable for not dating him. The session then just kind of awkwardly ended. Now, for another piece of context for what'll happen next. The DM after that started obsessively stalking the girl's social media and finding out that her boyfriend was black. The next session was probably the worst session of D&D that I have ever played. He had us go to an ogre village called, and this is me speaking out of context here, I don't know if this is going to have to be censored later on, but Ogriger Village. And it was filled with ogres he described as having low IQ, pitch black skin, big fat lips, a bone ring, a gorilla nose, and a tribal watermelon pit. They also had harems of sexy human women as slaves who left their own men for exotic bestial men. After he finished describing this, we all sat in shock for a good minute until the girl that he was into got up and slapped him, and then walked out. The rest of us were speechless until another player said, "That was fucked up." And he just said,
"Well, if I ain't getting laid, I may as well just be a dick at that point. Eventually, you just get fed up with female bullshit and stop giving a fuck."
We started just getting up and leaving at that point, and he just said,
Yeah, go and tell the manager. I know I'm banned, fuck it. I was done with this stupid fucking game anyway."
as he just kind of angrily packed up and left the store too. And then we never saw him again, thankfully. But unfortunately, we never saw the girl either. Rather unfortunate that a well-deserved slap doesn't exactly cure someone of nice guy syndrome. Good riddance, and hopefully the girl was able to find a better DM down the road and it didn't spoil it for her. And now on to the next one, in which someone threatens to take legal action against a DM. So, I play D&D at a local game shop that is kind of crappy. Not that the store itself is bad, but the element is. I can't tell you how many murder hobos, SA hobos, and just general crappy players I've dealt with, but it's the only game shop in the area, so I just kind of bounce from games or kick people when things get a little too fucked up. That, and I kind of have built up a tolerance of this. But this one guy takes the cake. We were playing a campaign years ago. I was a dragonborn druid. That guy was a tiefling barbarian, and our DM, who was paid, was running a Dark Souls, Elden Ring-esque campaign, but with more roleplay. We lived in a castle with a lord who would send us on missions to help the battered towns in the area from the various monsters, demons, and magic-wielding warlords that would ravage them. That guy was not the sharpest tool in the shed. He was constantly assuming that NPCs were out to get him, or secret spies, or whatever, and would kill them, or mouth off, or accidentally reveal secrets and screw up our mission. And potential allies in this campaign were in short supply, so his behavior often isolated us. He also argued with the DM a lot and accused him of trying to kill the party or railroad us because encounters were tough. He also got mad when the DM stopped him from assaulting a dying NPC who tried to assassinate the party. He said,
"Oh, he can kill us, but I can't give him a taste of his own medicine.
and
I'm paying him for this game, so why do you keep trying to control my actions?"
which led to another back and forth about railroading. The final straw, however, was when he died after a particularly brutal confrontation with a particularly nasty undead spellcasting warlock character who we had heard horror stories about. The rest of us fled after he died, and he began summoning backup in a fight we were already losing. And he was livid. He accused the DM of targeted harassment and being unfair, and the DM just told him he could roll a new character, and that death was a part of D&D. Then the guy said,
"Well, I'm paying you $20 for a session just for it to all be for nothing? Hell no! I want my money back!"
The DM refused, but the guy kept yelling, so the DM offered him a refund on the session, and he could bow out of the campaign. But he said,
"No! I want my entire campaign's worth of money back!"
The DM looked at him like he was crazy, which he is, and said, "You paid for hundreds of dollars worth of sessions, and used them. Hell no, you aren't getting it back." His retort was simply,
"Well, you basically ripped me off. It's called false advertising and fraud."
This went back and forth until he said,
"Well, fine. I'm going to tell the store owner."
So he did. But the store owner, who has seen him play multiple sessions with the DM, just laughed in his face and said,
"Okay, well, let's see how you like losing everything. You'll be hearing from my lawyer."
He then stormed out, and we never heard from him or any of his lawyers ever again. Well, I mean, honestly, I kind of see that as a win. You have a self-correcting problem, and you get paid for it. And that's it for that one. The next one up is about a narcissist who ruined a 20-year-long friendship. This is really messed up. I've been a DM for as long as I can remember, and I love playing TTRPGs. I've been friends with my group for God even knows who long. Decades, at least. We usually play D&D together. It's my go-to group. It's a bigger group than recommended, with 7 players total. But since we've been playing together for so long, it actually runs pretty smoothly. When we first started, we didn't have nearly as much content as we do now. So back then, I created a homebrew world. It's been growing and evolving over at least 2 decades now. It's my project, and I take pride in it. I'm not saying that it's the best, but it's the best that I could do. And I've kept tons of notebooks over the years to keep everything consistent. But in the last year or two, the sheer number of them got, well, pretty cluttered, so I finally decided to organize everything digitally. I started using Notion. It's a bit clunky at first, but once it's all set up, it's pretty good. And I can't believe that I didn't switch to it sooner. But anyway, that's not the main point of this story. I used Notion for everything. World building, session notes, campaign plots, archives, everything. It made my life easier, and I can access it from pretty much anywhere. So, now we're getting into the main story. About 3 months ago, our group hit some major scheduling issues, and we couldn't play for a while. We went nearly 2 months without a session. Thing is, the break happened after I had already written up the notes for our next session. Nothing new there, right? Scheduling issues are the bane of TTRPGs. But about a month ago, we finally managed to set up a session. So I went back to my notes to refresh my memory, and that's when things felt off. Some things weren't exactly how I remembered them. Bullet points, loot lists, NPC interactions, and so on. Even the way that it was written, it all seemed a little different. It wasn't that different from what I remembered, but just different enough to feel off. I figured that it was just my mind playing tricks on me and I ignored it. I made a few tweaks that I thought needed more attention, and that was that. 2 weeks later, we had our session coming up, so I went back to my notes to check everything, get the minis ready, the maps and so on, and once again, things were different. Stuff I knew that I had changed had reverted back. So let me paint a picture. The changes all leaned toward certain outcomes. I don't usually set things up like that, so it felt wrong. So I made all my changes again. When we finally met for the session at a friend's place, things went smoothly for the most part, but a few things caught my attention. One player, who's normally the most outgoing, was acting a bit strange. You know when someone seems anxious or expectant, like they're waiting for something specific to happen? It was like that. He didn't say anything, but I got the feeling that he was expecting something particular to happen. And when it didn't, or at least didn't happen the way that he wanted, he looked frustrated. I thought it was strange, but honestly, everyone's under different kinds of stress, so I didn't really dwell too much on it. So I went home that day and got on Notion to write up what happened in the session for my archives. Then, the next day, while at work, I pulled out my phone to check a few things, as my mind wanders sometimes. And I opened the archive for that session, and it was altered again. And that's when I was sure that something was up. I asked a friend who works in programming if there was any way things could have been changed on Notion by themselves. Maybe their servers were acting up or something. So he took my laptop, and the first thing that he checked on was the list of devices with access to my account. There was 4. My laptop, my phone, my tablet, and another laptop that I didn't recognize, which had logged in that same day. As you can imagine, this was absolutely terrifying. I don't want anything on my Notion exposed. It's my work, and I don't want anyone else looking at it. So we did a full reset. I changed my passwords and everything. My friend even went the extra mile and reformatted my laptop and reset all of my devices. Which sucks, by the way. But hey, security first. Well, there wasn't much more we could do after that, and my next D&D session was coming up, so I went to work on it. That's when, out of nowhere, I remembered that particular player's odd behavior. It bugged me. So I decided to check my archives, my world notes, and everything. And holy hell, it was everywhere. Everywhere I looked, things were changed to make his characters, plural, yes, look better. He'd even edited full-on epilogues, calling his characters the party's brain and leader, and so forth. I was furious. I still am. Our next session was supposed to be this Saturday, but I just couldn't go through with it. I called him and laid it all out. I told him that I knew what he had been doing. And you know what this sociopath said?
Well, why does it matter? It's not like it's hurting anyone. I just wanted a better light.
Are you kidding me? I've known him for over 20 years. 20 years! And this guy pulls something like that? I'm sorry, but I'm just so goddamn angry I hung up the call the moment he said that. And I made damn well sure to kick him out of every TTRPG group that we have. I also told every player what he had been up to, and they're all as pissed as I am. Maybe even more, honestly. So now I'm trying to put things back together and fix everything. Thank God I have my notebook so I can fact-check it all, but seriously, who does this kind of crap? Who, you ask, OP? Well, that's a very simple question. A person who can only think of themselves. They are a narcissist. They do not value you or your 20-year-ish long friendship. The guy had a rather nasty case of main character syndrome. And while it sucks that you lost a long-standing player, it's a small mercy that it wasn't worse. But that's all I got for you today. If you'd like more of my content, I have an educational channel, as well as an archival channel for my Twitch streams. You can also support me directly through Patreon, And I also take commissions for city and world maps for use in your own tabletop misadventures. But as always, have a good one. The rest of us were speechless until another pled?